Good morning, everyone. Here's my dog. Hi, baby. He's been really bad. But today I'm going to go through your first poem with you so that we can kind of explain and explore a TPCAST. So this is for my 7th graders and my 9th graders. You guys are probably basically in the same place in the curriculum. I mean, I had other plans, but poetry is probably one of the easiest things that I can do just by like using videos and not really being there. So that's kind of what we're going to work on now. So I uploaded for you guys in your week 3, April 6th to April 10th, online learning folder. I wrote up there what a TPCAST is. So I showed you guys. TPCAST is an acronym, so each letter represents something you want to analyze in the poem. So we're going to do our first TPCAST today. We're going to use the poem Where the Sidewalk Ends by Shel Silverstein. So if you guys are not familiar with Shel Silverstein, he wrote The Giving Tree. Which is a super famous book. He wrote his poetry book is called Where the Sidewalk Ends, but there is a poem in it called Where the Sidewalk Ends. He also wrote a poetry book called The Light in the Attic, and he's like a super famous children's book and poetry author. So I really love doing this poem first. It's easy, but it's still really fun and exciting. I love the theme. So it's a very easy place to start, but I still think it's good and it has a good theme, and I still think you can get a lot out of it. So that's the first poem we're going to do. I did post online the text for you guys of the poem, but I mean, you can Google it and it's there. So the very first thing that we do with the TPCAST is at first we have to look, before we even read it, the first thing we have to do is look at the title of the poem. Now, when you guys are doing a TPCAST, you'll have it, as you can see, you'll have it like this. You can just do it on notebook paper. Just make yourself a little grid with all of the different letters. So just make yourself a little grid. So for the first part is title. So we have to decide, it says Where the Sidewalk Ends. What does that mean? A lot of the times students will tell me, it could mean the ending of a journey, or it could mean the beginning of a different journey, because one path is ending but another path might be beginning. So if I was looking at this and I was going to write it down, maybe for title I would write the ending of a journey. Maybe that is what I would put, for what it represents. But before reading the poem, you just kind of write what you think that title is going to mean. So there's a couple for this one. I think the ending of a pathway is, could you stop? I think the ending of a pathway is pretty metaphorically and literally pretty obvious. But so all you have to do is just write what you think it represents. Now, the next part is that we're doing our paraphrasing. So P stands for paraphrase. A paraphrase is like a summary, but okay, you need to go away. Paraphrase is like a summary, but it's a little bit longer. It's a lot more detailed. You basically take all of the... He's back. He just wants to be in the video. Go to daddy. So basically you read the poem one way through, and then paraphrasing is when you describe what is literally happening in the poem. So before you analyze the poem, you have to know actually what's going on, because if you don't really know what's happening, then the analysis is going to totally fall apart. So for Where the Sidewalk Ends, I'm going to read this to you guys. Oh, I miss doing this in class. Where the Sidewalk Ends, Shel Silverstein. There is a place where the sidewalk ends and before the street begins. And there the grass grows soft and white, and there the sun burns crimson bright, and there the moonbird rests from his flight to cool in the peppermint wind. Let us leave this place where the smoke blows black and the dark street winds and bends. Past the pits where the asphalt flowers grow, we shall walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and watch where the chalk-white arrows go to the place where the sidewalk ends. Yes, we'll walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and we'll go where the chalk-white arrows go, for the children they mark, and the children they know the place where the sidewalk ends. So we have 3 stanzas. I'm going to go ahead and break up my paraphrasing into 3 parts. So the very first stanza says, there is a place where the sidewalk ends and before the street begins. So the first paraphrase for the stanza is, the author is describing a place. He says where the sidewalk ends. We don't really know what that means yet, but we'll figure it out. So it's describing a place. It has soft white grass, a bright sun, something called moonbirds, and it says it cools in the peppermint wind. So the first stanza's paraphrase is describing the place where the sidewalk ends. That's literally what's happening. The second stanza says, let us leave this place. The second stanza describes the place you're currently in. So not the place where the sidewalk ends, but whatever place you live in now. That's the basic paraphrase. And it says, smoke blows black, dark streets, pits of asphalt flowers. It says they are walking a walk and following arrows to the place where the sidewalk ends. So I guess there's two things for the second stanza: the place you live now, and you're following arrows to leave it. And then the third stanza says, yes, we'll walk with a walk that is measured and slow to the place where the chalk white arrows go. The children they mark, the children they know. So the children are drawing arrows to the place where the sidewalk ends. So you just paraphrase. So you just look at like what is literally happening in the poem. So you just kind of write down like a short summary of what's going on. So next is connotation. It's my favorite part. So connotation is, you know how all words have a dictionary definition. They also have a connotation, which is the emotional definition. So all words carry a stronger power than just what they physically mean in the dictionary. So connotation is when we look at all the different types of words and we decide what they mean and if we think that they're important. A really good place to start with connotation is to look for figurative language. So you can look for similes and metaphors. Another really good place is to look at imagery. Imagery is typically going to be your driving force when you are looking at connotation. Is going to be imagery. So here it says some words that stand out to me. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to mark them on my poem. Oh my goodness, Watson wants to be in this video so badly. So it says that there is soft and white grass, a sun that burns crimson bright, something called moonbirds, and then it says there's a peppermint wind, and that they're cooling in the peppermint wind. So these are all very vivid description words. So if I was doing connotation, I'd probably write down like all of these words, like how the grass is soft and white, how the sun burns crimson bright. There's something called a moonbird. We don't know what that is. I think that because it's a unique definition, or a unique word, I think that's important because we've never heard it before. And the wind is described as peppermint, and that's pretty unique too. So you might want to put down like that those words exist. And then the next stanza, it says, let us leave this place. We have smoke blowing black. We have a dark street. We have pits. Asphalt flowers is very interesting. I've never heard flowers described that way before. So that's an interesting one. And it says that they're walking with a walk that is measured and slow. Chalk white arrows. So that's kind of interesting. So if I was going to look at words in the second stanza, I might do that. There's smoke that blows black. I think that's an important image. There's dark streets, asphalt flowers. We don't know what that is. So that would be worth it. Kind of like moonbirds. We have asphalt flowers, which is kind of interesting. And then it says that the walk is measured and slow, and that they're following arrows. So they're taking like this very deliberate walk and they're following a path. So all of these ways that they're being described, I think, is important for connotation. And then I think the really important part is the addition of children in the third stanza. They're saying that the children are the ones that are actually making the path for us. And I think that's kind of your big change from the second stanza to the third, because basically the same thing is happening at the end of the second into the third, but this addition of the children knowing where to go, I think, is probably the important thing there. So these are just some words that I picked out. So all I would do on my paper is I would just like list all of them. You know, I just list all the important words, and if you have room, you can kind of describe the words. So next we're going to move on to attitude. So attitude is the way that the poem feels. So like, is it happy, sad? Is it positive, negative? Why do we think that it sounds like that? So if we look at all of the words that we used for connotation, we can kind of go stanza by stanza. If we use connotation, we have to decide, how do these words sound to us? You know, are they happy and sad? Are they positive, negative? Are they surprised? Are they angry? You know what I mean? Like, you have to figure out, like, how does it feel? Like, what's the feeling of what's going on in the poem? So the first stanza has really pretty things. It has beautiful soft grass, a bright sun, moonbirds, a cool peppermint wind. So this is all pretty chill. Like, it sounds really relaxing. It sounds peaceful. And then you have the second stanza, which talks about black smoke, dark streets, asphalt flowers, which, even though we don't really know what those are, there's a couple options. It could be weeds that grow in between asphalt on the street, you know, something like that. And then it says that they're walking and following arrows to leave. They're trying to leave this place. So I think leave actually is probably an important word, because they don't want to be here. So the first stanza is pretty positive. you know, and it has good sounding words. And then the second stanza is definitely negative, like they want to leave this place. And like, who wants to be in a place that has like a bunch of black smoke and weeds growing out of the asphalt and like dark streets and stuff? Like, obviously no one wants to do that. So this is kind of negative. And then this last stanza we have here is where they're kind of describing their, you know, like their goal. So this is kind of like your goal or like your plan. You know, they're saying we are going to leave this place and we're going to go to where the sidewalk ends. So it's kind of like your goal, I guess. So for attitude, there are more than one. So you can kind of describe like the different attitudes that you see. That brings us to shifts. So a shift is when something changes in the poem. So it can be really anything. You could have a change in attitude. You could have a change in connotation. So the things that the words mean. You could have a change in paraphrase. If something weird is going on and you're like, what is that? Like that could be a shift, like anything that's exciting that's happening. There could be a shift in a speaker. There could be a shift in an author. So a shift is just literally like whenever anything changes. So as you can see, we definitely have a big shift here, but in attitude. So the beginning is positive, the middle is negative, and then the end is kind of your goal setting. So a big shift would be an attitude. Now the reason there's a shift in attitude is because of the connotation shift as well. So you can put that on there too. These are happy words and these are sad words. So there's a shift here between these words, so it creates the shift in attitude. So both of those are a shift. And then I think your final shift here with connotation is definitely that incorporation of children. So that would be a shift. We're adding this new idea that we're not really sure what it means, but that's definitely a big shift as well. So you can kind of see that there are things happening here, different meanings for each of the stanzas, and it's trying to teach us something different. And then we'll move back to title. So now that we know what the poem means and it says where the sidewalk ends, we have to kind of determine what the title really means. This is kind of up to you guys, like where the sidewalk ends. Obviously, like you could say like where the sidewalk ends is like a really good place, and you know we're trying to leave from a bad place. I don't know. And like some people kind of make the assumption that where you have black smoke and dark streets and asphalt and stuff, they're always like, well, this is obviously, it could be like the city or the human world, you know, making pollution and being gross. And then, you know, where the sidewalk ends is all nature. It's nothing man-made. It talks about the grass, the sun, the birds. So they're saying this could probably be nature. It could be heaven. It could be, you know, a different world that is more environmentally conscious. So you can see that like you have to make some assumptions when you start moving on to the title and theme portion. You have to start deciding, okay, well, we have shifts in attitude and words. Like, what does this mean? Like, what is the big overarching meaning? So I think using title is a good jumping off point, because next comes our theme. So your theme should be one sentence, should be universal, and it should say something about the world or mankind. So now that we've analyzed this poem, I'm not going to give the theme away to you. You guys have to determine what theme you think it follows. Now, the assignment that you have to complete for this, you don't have to mark up the poem. I mean, unless you can print it out, that would be a little time consuming, but you do have to fill this out. So you can print this if you want, or you can just make like boxes on a piece of notebook paper, and then you can just follow along with my video and you can kind of record things. But the title and theme, the last two T's in TPCASTT, those are really up to you guys. I'm not going to give those away since I fully analyzed everything for you. I think you'll be able to figure that out yourself. So that's an example of how to do TPCASTT. I will be giving you guys more poems to analyze throughout the week. I've already got some posted for you, but yeah, so I'll give you more poems that we'll analyze, and then eventually we'll be writing. 9th grade, you will have formal essays. 7th grade, yours will be a little easier, but we'll eventually start doing writing assignments where we analyze our poems. But that is the first, so that is how you do a TPCASTT. Our first poem by Shel Silverstein, one of my absolute favorites. I think it's easy to get through, but I think it has a really good message as well. So hopefully this example has really helped you guys with analyzing your poems. I'm hoping you can do them by yourselves. Each of you should have at least one poem that you are also assigned for week 3. So you'll have to do it by yourself for one of the poems. Obviously, you can ask my help, but you do have to try it individually. So good luck with your other poem assignment. And I'm recording this. I'm not actually done with all of your lessons. I just got excited and wanted to do the Silverstein poem because I was all excited about it. But yeah, so good luck with the rest of your poetry work, and I will talk to you later.